Ottawa has agreed to set a $100 million yearly cap on payments that Google will be required to make to media companies when the government controversial online news legislation takes effect at the end of the year. Wait, Ottawa has agreed to set a $100 million yearly cap on payments that Google will be required. So Google has to pay Ottawa money? The announcement Wednesday has the Liberals bending to the tech giant's demands after Google threatened back in February to remove news from its platform. It should. It absolutely should. Fuck Canada, man. I'm sorry, like, as a Canadian, guys, we're royally screwing up the internet. Just one look at Google News. If you go to World, actually, it's not too bad today. But there was so much Canadian news inside the World News section over the past while that I wonder. I really wonder. It's actually looking pretty good today. If I go to business, let's see. Well, obviously, we have the Canadian news right here at the very top. More Canadian investor stuff, Canadian ski homes. This is not this is Canadian business. This is what this should be. It should be Google news.google.ca, and then when you go to business, that's what comes up. The Online News Act compels tech giants to enter into compensation agreements with news publishers for content that appears on Google's sites and contributes to the company's revenues. A formula in the government's draft regulations to implement the bill would have seen Google contribute up to $172 million to news organizations. Google balked, saying it was expecting the figure to be closer to $100 million based on what it said was previous estimate from the Canadian heritage officials. The company appears to have gotten what it wanted after an extended period of negotiation. Still, Canadian Heritage Prime Minister Pascal Saint-Onge called it a historic development, insisting Wednesday that the agreement was ultimately a win for government and for local news publishers it is seeking to support. Yeah, like, a win against who? A win against the people? That's what this is? Like, literally a win against who? It is a win against the people. So that they can now inject their news, inject their opinions, and pull funding from Google for their own little privatized bubbles. This pisses me off. We have found a path forward to answer Google's questions about process and the act. Google wanted certainty about the amount of compensation it would have to pay Canadian news outlets, she said on Parliament Hill. Canada reserves the right to reopen our regulations if there are better agreements struck elsewhere in the world, she added. Google's President of Global Affairs, Kent Walker, thanked the minister for acknowledging our concerns and deeply engaging in a series of productive meetings about how they might be addressed. He said in a statement the extensive discussions addressed the company's core issues with the bill. We will work with the government through the exemption process based on the regulations that will be published shortly. We will continue sending valuable traffic to Canadian publishers, said Walker. I need a VPN. We can go back to my old cyber ghost. I think we will be applying for a VPN here, buying a VPN. The deal will allow Google to comply with the legislation by paying into a single collective bargaining group that will serve as a media fund. Meta, on the other hand, complied simply by blocking all news content from Canada users of its largest platforms, Instagram and Facebook. Last month, News Media Canada, a lobby group for hundreds of Canadian newspapers and magazines, said it agreed with many issues Google raised during the back and forth over how the bill would be implemented. The group said there should be a cap on how much the search giant would have to pay under the law. Google plays an essential role in helping Canadians find trusted news sources, and we are confident there is a path forward for the company and publishers to continue what has been a mutually beneficial relationship for many years to come. The group's president CEO, Paul Deegan, said at the time. In addition to financial contribution, Canadian Heritage and Google will continue to make programs available for Canadian news businesses, such as training, tools, and resources for business development and support for non-profit journalism projects. Google said on Wednesday that the deal means there will be immediate changes to existing agreements it has with publishers in Canada under its Google News Showcase agreement, which were part of a $1 billion global investment. The company said that it would review its ongoing investments in Canada when the final regulations are published. Google wouldn't say how much it is already paying publishers under existing contracts, saying such agreements are confidential commercial arrangements. Companies that fall under the Online News Act must have a total global revenue of $1 billion or more in a calendar year, operate in search engines or social media markets distributing and providing access to news content in Canada, and have more than 20 million or more Canadian average monthly unique visitors or average monthly active users. I don't know how I feel about this. The Canadian government is exceptionally disconnected. They always have been. They're more concerned, and this is a big statement, the Canadian government is more concerned about perception than it is about productivity. And this is one of these cases where they're sticking their fingers into places that they have no idea how anything works at all. Like, literally no idea. The old laws, the old Canadian laws, were from like the physical distribution of companies inside Canada. So like Canadian TV has to have a very specific percentage of it being actual Canadian content, which makes sense if you have a limited environment and, well, a limited amount of channels. But the internet is an open, free platform for everybody. What gets to me is that the Canadian government is trying to curate what I seek out and reach. And that's the issue. That's the big issue. If I seek out and reach some information, no government should be in the way of that. And what Google, or what the Canadian government is doing, is putting themselves in between my search and the rest of the world, which is different. It's totally different than TV and radio and regular newspapers, because TV, radio, and newspapers are a one-way platform. The media company creates the content and then they export the content, whereas the internet is a two-way platform, and you don't get to be able to curate one direction of information. That means that as a Canadian, I'm going to be receiving information that's curated, while others get to basically test me. That's what they do. They get to A/B test on me whether or not information that I get is competent, is good.